So we have cemented the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in these 3 generations. Who else comes in these 3 generations? Who else do we find in these 3 generations?
All the Sahaba.
All the Sahaba, but I'm talking about stuff that we draw from now. Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, was in these 3 generations. His student, who was his student? Who was the great Imam that was his student? Yeah, Abu Yusuf, yes, but as far as the 4. Imam Malik was a student of Imam Abu Hanifa, was in these 3 generations. Who was his student, one of his students?
Shafi'i.
Imam Shafi'i, we have in these 3 generations. And then who studied under him? Imam Ahmed, who also benefited from Sufyan al-Thawri, etc., so on and so forth. But the 4 Imams of fiqh we find here. Yes or no? So in reality, what we have of Islam was cemented in these 3 generations. It was consolidated and cemented in these 3 generations. It was kept. The sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ was contained in these 3 generations, so that we still have it preserved as of now. The Imams of fiqh were in these 3 generations. Some of the greatest of the scholars of Islam were in these 3 generations. So this is why the Prophet ﷺ said this. He understood it very well. So the prophecy from him that these are going to be the 3 best of the generations. So we know that our minhaj comes from there. And all that really means is that we connect ourselves back to that. We connect ourselves authentically back to that. Does that make any sense? That we authentically connect ourselves back to that. Back to the Prophet ﷺ through the proper channels. Through the proper channels. Because none of us spoke to the Prophet ﷺ. None of us spoke to a Sahabi. So we have to connect ourselves back to their teachings authentically. Because people can just make up stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things made up in Islam. So how do we get back to that source? We go through the authentic scholars who connect themselves back to this pure teachings of Islam. You can call that whatever you want to call it, but that is the reality that we have to connect ourselves back to that. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, وَشَرَعُ أُمُورِ محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. The worst of affairs are things which you put into this religion newly placed into this religion. He said are the worst of affairs. And every newly innovated matter is a bid'ah. And every bid'ah is a dawah, a misguidance. And every misguidance is in the fire. So to protect ourselves from that, we go back to the authentic sources, which is the Prophet ﷺ after the understanding of the companions. Because who are the best interpreters of the Sunnah? And the relators of the Sunnah are the companions of the Prophet ﷺ and their understanding and their ijma. So we go back to that, inshallah. That's where our minhaj comes from. We don't just make things up. We're not allowed to make things up in Islam. It's just not really what we're allowed to do. We can't make it up. We cannot just do what we want to do. We have to do things authentically. Any questions about that? I mean, if you have a question, there's no such thing as a silly question asked. So I want to make sure you understand that. That our knowledge has to be authentic. It has to be authentic. What we are getting and drawing from Islam and teaching the people needs to be authentic. And there should be no problem with asking someone who is teaching you something to prove it. If someone tells you something, you should be ready to ask, excuse me, I just want to know, do you have a reference for that? Where did you get it from? Not in a challenging way, in a respectful manner. Can you tell me where you got that from? If I cannot tell you where I got something from, I shouldn't be telling it to you. Yeah, I really shouldn't. I try not to tell things to people that I don't know where it came from and the evidence and the proof. But we all make mistakes. Number 2, they must understand whom they are speaking to. We talked about that earlier. You must know who it is you're speaking to. And so that you don't end up being the one giving da'wah. And there are a couple of ways to go about finding out who it is you're speaking to. Now, one of the things that I want to suggest to you when you are trying to figure out who it is you're speaking to is ask closed-ended questions. Ask closed-ended questions. Does anybody know what a closed-ended question is? Closed-ended question.
Is it answer just by yes or no?
It's a yes or no answer. Closed-ended questions are yes or no's, or simple answers. Questions that have simple answers to them. And in contrast, an open-ended question is a question that the person is just allowed to elaborate on, which is not what you want to ask in now. You don't want to ask open-ended questions. Like, for instance, I meet someone. How you doing, sir? Do you mind if I have a couple of minutes of your time to discuss with you the purpose of life? Can I sum up the purpose of life for you in a few questions? Or in a few words. To worship your Creator, etc., so on and so forth. But these are closed-ended questions. Can I talk to you for just a moment about this? Yes or no? And then when they decide to discourse with me, just out of curiosity, do you believe in God? Do you have a belief in God? What is that? Is it yes or no? That's a closed-ended question. Yes, I believe in God. Okay, do you have a religion? Yes or no question, closed in. Yes, I have a religion. What religion is it? That's closed in because there's a very simple answer behind that. Do you see what I mean by closed-in questions? And now within just 3 or 4 questions, I know the person believes in God. I know the person has a religion. I know they're a Christian. What denomination? Trinitarian, Baptist. I know exactly now how to target this person. You see what I'm saying? I know exactly how I need to target this person. Or do you believe in God? No. Okay, well, we know we need to go with this. Say this. We need to go in this direction. Do you believe in God? Yes. Do you have a religion? No. So now you know they might be atheists, or they might be agnostic. Do you see what I'm saying? Now you kind of know how to direct towards them. Or do you have a religion? Yes. I believe in God. I'm a Christian. I'm a pastor. Okay, you need to be careful. This guy has some knowledge. You know what I mean? You're not going to just play him any kind of way. You're not going to just go the whole roundabout watching one of my videos and tackle him. You need to be careful. But you see what I'm getting at? You can kind of decipher them a little bit from this perspective. Now what's an open-ended question? Excuse me, why don't you tell me what you believe about God? Oh my God. You just gave the person the open, line to just roll on and on and on and on. They will not be quiet. And what happens now if you're sitting around people? Now these people are going to be listening to him. And what happens if they decide to leave right after he's done? That's all they got was his he did the down. He did what you were supposed to be doing. So you ask closed-in questions in order to keep the conversation going in the direction you want it to go. Because normally you don't have a lot of time, and if you ask open-ended questions, people will just go on and on and on. So you need to know who it is you're speaking to, and the easiest way to do that is ask closed-in questions. Closed-in questions. And they can be about general things like that. Do you have a belief in God? Yes or no? That's a big one. You need to know. Do you have a religion? Yes or no? What is your religion? And if it's a religion that like Christianity, you can't just say, okay, you're a Christian, I'm going to start bashing him about the Trinity. He might not believe in the Trinity. Every Christian does not believe in the Trinity. They have various beliefs, so you need to know what kind of Christian they deal with. If they say they're Unitarians and they don't believe Jesus was God. If they say they are Jehovah's Witness, they don't believe Jesus was God. They don't believe in holidays and all. They have a lot of similar beliefs with us. So you really need to know whom it is you're dealing with when getting direct down. And that's the psychology about that. Any questions on that? Any questions on that? Dealing with people trying to learn a little bit about them very quickly. Because you don't have a lot of time. You need to be able to go on and move quickly. Wisdom and tolerance take center court. Wisdom and tolerance take center court. What I mean by taking center court is that you need to be in control of the conversation at all times. And you need to know when the situation and the conversation is getting out of your hands so that you can try to get it back. Because if you give the conversation over to the other individual, then you're going to end up being the recipient of da'wah. This is not what we're trying to do. It doesn't mean you don't let them talk. Some people need to talk. But if you're on a one-on-one basis talking to someone, that's fine. If you want to let them talk and you want to sit there and let them, blabber on about, all their different crazy beliefs, that's fine. But if you're in a group orientation or where people are witnessing or watching, you need to make sure you control that conversation and not let it get out of hand, because now you're indirectly giving da'wah to everyone who is listening. Either you're doing it or that person's doing it. Somebody's going to be giving the people da'wah. And you need to make sure that the right message is going out. So you need to be in control of the conversation. And establishing the truth and proof about Islam. This is one reason why I don't do interfaith. Somebody was asking me that, I think, yesterday. Do I do interfaith? No, I don't do interfaith. Can anyone imagine why I refuse absolutely to do interfaith? What is the premise of interfaith? The premise of interfaith is everyone's on equal footing. Yes or no? Interfaith is the premise of all interfaith is that everyone's on equal footing. You're okay, we're okay, they're okay, and no one's allowed to, say everyone's better than the other one or what? And I see Muslims involved in this. And they say they're doing da'wah. Your da'wah is by telling them that their religion is the same as your religion? What da'wah is that? No, I can't be involved in interfaith because every time I have a chance, I'm going to tell you that you're wrong. And that we're right. Islam is right, all of you are wrong. Everyone's okay. No, we're not. I'm okay, inshallah. You're not okay. If you die believing in that, you're going to hell. Straight up. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I can't, to appease you, violate my deen. No, I'm not going to do that. This is what I mean by, if you were in interfaith, I tried it once. Oh my God, it's the biggest headache trying to have to just sit there and listen to them babble on about foolishness. And I'm not allowed to get up and say, well, that is just stupid. You're an idiot if you believe that. When it's a reality, you're an idiot. I gotta sit here and listen to you tell me about, how Krishna killed this god and stole his wife and slept with the brother. It's like a soap opera. I feel like I'm living a soap opera with some of the Hindu gods. And I gotta sit here and listen to this and say you're okay. No, you're not okay. You're an idiot. So I don't do stuff like that. You need to be in control of the situation. That's the izzah of a Muslim. They're in control of the situation because they know what is right. The companions of the Prophet, radiallahu anhum, they did not need to be proficient in comparative religion to go to the religious leaders of the world. They would go to the other religious leaders of the world and tell them, without even knowing what their religion is about, and tell them that the Prophet ﷺ came to free you from the oppression of false religion unto the freedom of the worship of the one true God. They wouldn't even know what their religion is. They just know if it was not Islam, it's wrong. If it's not Islam, it's wrong. Don't need to know what it is. It's false, it's fake. And if you die that way, you're going to heaven. Very point blank period. Number 4, be presentable. Look like a Muslim. Now what do I mean? That's got a lot of connotation behind it. What do you mean, look like a Muslim? Is there a uniform? Kind of. Kind of is. Does that mean I have to wear a thobe? Do I have to? Yes or no? No, I don't have to wear a thobe. I love thobes. Personally, they're very comfortable. It's also a walking billboard for Islam. Everyone knows you're a Muslim when you walk around like this. There's no playing games with that. Well, some people, not everyone. I'm either a Muslim or a rabbi. A priest. Depends on what color I'm wearing. If I'm wearing a black thobe, I get mistaken for a priest. Unfortunately. I've had people try to confess to me. It was a good tool for da'wah. It's another story altogether. But be presentable, look like a Muslim. What I mean by look like a Muslim is keep the Islamic morals at all times. Keep the Islamic character at all times. Keep the Islamic character at all times.